Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Sunak to my Starmer. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Oh, Justin. I didn't actually mention, you know how we were talking about my jolly over in Japan in a Thursday's episode. One thing I forgot to mention is I did have a bit of a mare while out in Japan.
Okay.
So, first of all, it's worth mentioning that Japan's economy is really in the shit right now. So everything over there is much cheaper than usual.
Okay.
So I wanted to help them out by buying as many things as possible and really exploit the situation, but mostly so I could contribute to their VAT because I'm such a compassionate person, Justin.
Of course. No one would ever question this. You are Mr. Compassion. Every single championship follower of every single club that's ever been in championship since we've been covering will agree with that statement.
Exactly. It's undeniable. Anyway, so while I was out there, you know how I'm a big collector of football shirts. I went to a shop which sold J-League football shirts. Ooh. And I managed to buy £150 worth of football shirts. They were nice shirts, Justin. Very nice shirts. Okay. So I got on the subway back to the hotel. I had to get on one, then transfer to another one, back at the hotel. Mm-hmm. Got on the first one, having a merry old time, thinking about how nice my shirts are. Got off, got onto the next one, and I was about halfway through that journey, and I thought, where's my bag?
Oh, no.
And yeah. I lost £150 worth of football shirts.
You didn't go back and buy any more, did you?
Yes, I did. I thought to myself, I'm out here. I'm not missing the opportunity to buy some really nice J-League shirts at a good price. So even though I absolutely slapped myself across the face, God. I may as well have just done anything else for that £150.
Yeah.
I still went out and bought even more because I care so much about the Japanese economy.
The Japanese economy is at the forefront of your mind. Japanese culture is very respectful anyway, so these shirts would have been handed in irregardless.
Well, that's it, Justin. I went to the Lost and Found to see if it had been handed in, because if there's one country on this planet who would find a bag full of £150 worth of football shirts and hand it into the authorities, it would be Japan. But it wasn't to be the case, unfortunately. So who knows where they are? I hope whoever has got them is putting them to good use.
I am a little bit good for you, but at the same time, this is a bit of a comeuppance, I guess.
Yeah, for all my compassion over the years.
There'll be a lot of listeners going, what a knob.
Yes, because of all my compassion. Welcome to the number one championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, we're not officially counted down to the start of the season just yet. We're going to wait until the end of the Euros before we start the official countdown, ladies and gentlemen. But until then, we have got a Q&A episode today. So we put out the question for you, dear listener, on social media and via our email, for you to send in your questions, and we've selected some of the best ones and we're going to go through them in this episode today. Some bloody good questions, and we haven't been able to answer them all in this episode today, but keep them in mind, and we may be able to answer them further down the line when we do another Q&A, because we want to do more this coming season, don't we, Justin? We love the listeners getting in touch and answering their questions that are pressing on their minds. But anyway, let's get on with the first question, shall we, Justin? This is from Joe Butler. He asks, who's your dark horse this season, and why is it Sheffield Wednesday?
That's a great question. Why is it Sheffield Wednesday?
Is it Sheffield Wednesday for you?
I wouldn't say it's Sheffield Wednesday. I don't want to get too carried away with Sheffield Wednesday. I think there's still quite a few signings they need to make, especially in the final third. Okay. But if Wednesday do make some of those, bolster their attacking options, I think they can be a dark horse for a push for promotion via the playoffs. They could be in the conversation for the playoffs at some point.
A playoff challenger.
Yeah, a playoff challenger. And I think mainly my stock and my thinking behind that is Danny Rule. But if I was to put out a dark horse, it would be Bristol City. It would absolutely be Bristol City. I think everything sort of come together at a nice time for them. They obviously had to make the big decision last season with Nigel Pearson moving on and bringing in Liam Manning. It was a younger coach with more modern ideas about how to play football. That's not to discredit anything that Nigel Pearson did, because he did a great job at Ashton Gate. But Liam Manning is probably more of a forward-thinking coach, but has some tactical flexibility in there as well. He's got a good young squad at his disposal, full of quality. I know Tommy Conway's more than likely going to leave this transfer window or this summer because of his contract running out next season. But at the end of next season, I should say. But that still doesn't mean the squad isn't full of quality. You've got Max Bird coming in after his January signing, then returned back to Derby on loan. They've just signed Fali Mayula, who's a 6'4" striker from Rapid Vienna, and we all know I love my tall forwards. So I'm big on Bristol City, and some higher earners like Andy King, Andy Vyman, and Matty James have all left as well. That makes the budget a little bit more flexible for other signings. So yeah, I'm big on Bristol City. I really, really am. I'm very excited about them this season.
Interesting that you say them, Justin, because I think they would also be my selection for Dark Horse. I agree with everything that you've said, really. I've always said I like the Liam Manning appointments. Some of the fans there may still need a bit of convincing, but I think he'll show that next season. They've always been a club ready to make the step up, haven't they? It's all just been about actually doing it, and I think getting Manning in is a good start to making that next step. The squad has got loads of players who can step up their games this coming season, loads of young players there. I really like the Max Bird signing, really excited to see him in a Bristol City shirt next season. I'm also very fascinated by the Fali Mayulu signing, Justin. 21 years old as well. Considering they spent £2.5 million on him, they clearly really fancy him. So, it's really, really interesting. I think there's still business to do before I would officially hang the Dark Horse sign around their necks. And you're quite right, if they do lose Tommy Conway, that would be a big shame. But yeah, I think as things stand, Bristol City are looking the most dark horsey out of all the teams in the Championship. Is there anyone else who particularly caught your eye, Justin? I think we can say it's looking quite open this season in terms of promotion. I would say it's a good opportunity for a dark horse. Would you agree? I
do, but it depends. I mean, I think it depends how you define dark horse, because I wouldn't consider Coventry City they always become under that category, don't they? But I wouldn't put them in there because I think they'll push for promotion. Similarly with Hull. I
agree, Justin. I was looking at this, and dark horse is a very much a subjective thing, isn't it? I was looking at the bookies odds, and I think Coventry and West Brom are decent prices. Having said that, there's only 4 teams shorter than them in terms of the price. So, West Brom finished 5th last season. Yeah. Coventry got to the playoff final the season before. So are they really a dark horse? I think Norwich are another one who I looked at and thought, decent price. But again, more of a grey horse, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
So back to my original question. Was there anyone else who stood out to you?
Not as a dark horse, especially not at this stage. I think the side that I would throw into the mix would be Bristol City. Maybe Swansea if Luke Williams can carry on their form. Their under season form last season was good, but again, I think they need a fair few signings. Nathan Wood looks likely to leave, or has already left at the time of recording to Southampton. So there's maybe a little bit more work that needs to be done in the transfer market for me to be convinced that they can actually get into the top half, let alone push for the top 6. So yeah, difficult really at this stage. But I think Bristol City are the side that tick that box massively. It's the biggest tick, isn't it? If you're talking about how big a tick would be, Bristol City have the biggest tick out of every team in the Championship who can be a dark horse at this point in the season.
The most dark horsey, Justin.
Yeah.
I think Sheffield Wednesday are worthy of a shout. Of course, they would need to continue the start they've had to this transfer window and replicate it times 2, I would say, maybe even times 3. So I think they're a shout. Danny Rule, of course, being the manager is a big boost as well. But there needs to be a lot more coming in before I would class them as a dark horse either. But we can't have too many dark horses. This isn't a Lloyd's TSB advert. So I'm happy to put Bristol City down as the lone dark horse as things stand. And this next question, Justin, is from Ashley Trevaro. He asks, which promoted side will perform the best this season? Who are you going with, Peachy, out of the 3?
I think maybe need to rephrase the question in my head. Who's least likely or most likely to stay in the Championship. I think that would be the best way I can sort of frame this. The answer to this question. I think it would be Portsmouth. I think that would be the obvious shout. I think Jordan Williams is a good versatile signing from Barnsley on a free. Obviously signed Josh Murphy off the back of his playoff heroics for Oxford. He brings obvious quality to the team. I think you couple that with Colby Bishop, who's a really good number 9. Scored a lot of goals in League One last season. We've got Callum Lang as well and Anthony Scully, who are going to provide a lot of quality in around the box. So I would throw Portsmouth into the mix, and I think John Mousinho's got a lot of potential as a manager. I'm not overly convinced by Oxford. They've got a youngish squad, one of the youngest squads in the division. But again, they need a lot more, I would say, Championship experience. But I like Des Buckingham a lot. Derby, probably the side that I'm least convinced by. And it lends into what I was saying.
Cynical Derby fan.
Maybe it is cynicism, but I think it lends into what I was saying in the previous episode about the strike force. You've got a strike force of James Collins, Connor Washington, Jerry Yates and Caden Jackson. It doesn't exactly strike fear into opposition sides. It's a very hard-working front line. Not all of them are going to play at the same time, but as a squad, that they graft, but sometimes you need quality, and I don't think Derby have any of that at the moment, and he needs a lot more signings as well. They've got the oldest average age in the Championship at the moment as well, which again is a problem.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you had to think about it so much. Just in Portsmouth were quite easily the obvious answer for me. I like their business so far. Josh Murphy was unplayable in the second half of last season for Oxford. Huge loss for Oxford, by the way, but for Portsmouth, if his career is back on track, could be a sublime move. I mean, we are talking about a guy, after all, who's still only 29 and once cost £11 million. Yeah. So, that's the kind of player we're talking about here. I agree with you. Jordan Williams could be quite a shrewd move. Played every game last season for Barnsley. Sammy Silvera, who they've got on loan from Middlesbrough, showed signs that he could be quite a talented player as well. So, yeah, and the squad that they've got is full of players in their peak years. So, I think Portsmouth are quite the obvious answer here. I think John Mousinho as well, did a great job last season. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does in the Championship. So I'm feeling pretty good about Portsmouth. But to go back to the original question, the reason why it's quite an easy decision for me is because I'm not feeling totally optimistic about the other two currently. As you were alluding to there, I can't really disagree with what you were saying.
Yeah, I will add about Oxford though. Everyone, a lot of Championship clubs spend a lot of time and a lot of money signing their players when they're in League One. Now they're in the Championship themselves, they're going to be fine, right? That's fair logic. Rob Dickey, Rob Atkinson, they've come from Oxford. Several other players have come up. Kemar Roof as well. So a lot of teams spend a lot of money signing their players.
No idea what point you're trying to make now.
I'm just saying, everyone signs Oxford's players in the past. They've done that, spent a lot of money on them, and now Oxford are in the Championship themselves. They're going to be fine.
That makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. But I with Oxford, I find them quite an intriguing team, particularly with the manager Des Buckingham. I'm really fascinated to see how he does stepping up to the Championship next season. I mean, it's always going to be difficult for them with their budget, isn't it? However, I would say their business so far has been very Rotherham. It's perhaps not been as imaginative as I was hoping thus far. May get better before the season starts. Got to be said. Also a massive blow losing Josh Murphy. And then Derby have some good players, and I expect them to strengthen further. My main beef is with the manager, because with Paul Warne, I've got more reservations with him than Dorsier has. American Psycho reference. Just because of his record at Championship level. 3 seasons in the Championship, 3 relegations. Doesn't inspire confidence. Wasn't the most popular, despite not the most popular manager at Derby, despite getting them back to the Championship. So, yeah, he's got to do a lot of convincing as well. But overall, answering the initial question, I think all 3 should be looking to stay up. Portsmouth, I could see venturing towards mid-table as the season goes on, perhaps even further. And I'm not as convinced with the other 2 that they'll be doing anything other than just staying up next season. Molly Hopkins has the next question, Peachy. She asks, who's a young player that you fancy to have a breakout season next season? Who are you going for?
I'm going to go with Matteo Joseph of Leeds. Obviously played a lot of games for Leeds coming off the bench last season, but he was looking sharp, on more than one occasion. Obviously scored against Chelsea in the FA Cup as well. And I think he's a player who probably is going to need to make the step up. There's probably going to be a little bit of movement in that final third in terms of players going out, so it's going to leave a bit of room for someone like Matteo Joseph to step up and make him I wouldn't say a bona fide starter, but ease himself into the season, score a few goals, and play his way into Daniel Farke's plans. So I think Matteo Joseph would be the first name that would come to my head. I like Andre Brooks at Sheffield United as well. He signed a long-term deal in January for the Blades. Obviously, with the squad looking threadbare at Bramall Lane, certain players are going to need to step up. So I know he made 20 appearances last season in the Premier League, so he has got experience. But if you're looking for a bit more ingenuity for the Blades, I think Andre Brooks is a good shout as well.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see if Matteo Joseph does get some more game time. Last season, he came off the bench 22 times last season and scored that dramatic late equaliser, didn't he, against Watford as well. So he's had plenty of cameos. Whether he is starting any games next season, I'm not sure, but if he can have more of an impact off the bench, that'll certainly be interesting. Of course, Leeds have a fantastic academy, so many good young players.
That's why it's easy to say a Leeds player.
Well, that's it. It's fascinating that they had so many last season who didn't get as much of a look in as Matteo Joseph did, despite him not starting a game last season. But the point is that he got more game time than loads of other players. So they clearly quite fancy him, and Patrick Bamford's not coming off the back of a great season. Jorginho Ruta could be leaving. Joel Pirro still needs to convince a lot of Leeds fans, so maybe Joseph can make that step up. Who knows? The player I've gone for, maybe a bit of a tap in to some. I've gone with Chris Rigg at Sunderland. Now he's only turned 17 last month, which is just mind-blowing considering he made 22 appearances last season, scoring 2 goals as well. He did only start 8 games, but I mean, anyone who's
16
starting 8 games is pretty ridiculous, and one would hope he's going to be a regular season next season and have a proper breakout season. The good thing is, the big thing is, and this may end up being one of the most important bits of business that Sunderland do all summer, is nailing down his future. He's committed to the club after signing a contract with Sunderland last week. He was being linked with the likes of Chelsea, Manchester United, even Borussia Dortmund, Justin. So he's clearly a very highly rated player, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's a good left foot as well, which is an important thing. But that endeavour to and commitment, which is why I think it was important to retain Tony Mowbray, because he's brought a lot of players on last season. Chris Rigg was one of them, and I think that commitment to keeping a 16-year-old in and around the first team for an entire campaign is a huge commitment and a huge risk as well. But it just goes to show how much quality that Chris Rigg does have. And Sunderland, like Leeds, have a really good, effective academy, very good at bringing players through, very good at bringing them into the first team as well. And I think in that environment with the new manager, Reggie Lebris, I think he's got the right coach over him who's got experience of blooding young players into a first team environment. So, it looks like a very nice formula at the moment at Stadium Light.
Yeah. Reggie Lebris.
Reggie Lebris. Very English way of saying
Lebris.
Reggie Lebris.
He's been there not that long, and Justin's already messing up his head. But you're right, he has got a very good record with developing young players, and one of his top tasks next season will be helping Chris Rigg take his game to the next level. By all accounts, he has limitless potential. Yeah. He could even be the Archie Gray of next season. So that's what I'm hoping with Chris Rigg. And even though he is still going to be 17 for pretty much next season, the whole of next season. In fact, he will be 17 for the whole of next season, considering he only turned 17 last month.
Good maths.
Then it's going to be fascinating to see how he develops, and we could be talking about one of the most promising young talents we've ever seen at this level. Justin, let's take a quick break and we'll answer more questions from our dear listeners. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. We're answering your questions, listener, and we have another one here, and this is from Joe Isaacs. He asks, out of the new managers who have been appointed at championship clubs this summer, which one are you the most excited about? Justin, kick us off.
Yeah, the thing about this right now is it's more so intrigue, because there hasn't been like a Vincent Kompany appointment where it's like, oh, big player, he's come from Europe. Or big player in his playing days, he's come from Europe. This is massive. So it's mainly all intrigue. For example, I'm genuinely intrigued by Wayne Rooney at Plymouth. I wouldn't have gone down that route. I wouldn't have appointed him, but I'm also willing to give him the opportunity to prove himself at a club that is, got all the right ingredients to really thrive as a club under the right manager. So Wayne Rooney could be that manager. Coaching staff has remained the same. He's not brought in his own guys, which I think is a big thing, because he's mentioned previously about his spell at Birmingham, about there being too many voices. So I think having the guys that have been there for a long time is going to be a big plus. And I think we argue about managers getting too big at jobs, but I think Plymouth is probably the perfect place to cut your teeth as a manager. And he's not a rookie manager either. He's got to learn from his mistakes that he made at Birmingham City, cultivate the atmosphere that he did at Derby, and get the fans on board like he did at Derby, and run with it, because I think Plymouth has got so much potential as a football club with the squad that they've got, the recruitment they do, and I think Wayne Rooney still has enough credit in the bank to get going. Tim Volter's another one. I just want to see the chaos. I just really want to see the chaos. A lot of attacking football at previous clubs. And that's what I want to see. I want to see 6-6 draws.
Wait, so are you saying Wayne Rooney's the one you're most excited about?
I'm most intrigued about. There's not a lot of excitement with the new managers right now.
That's not what the question was,
what do you want me to
Justin.
say?
Don't ignore Joe's question.
Fine. I'm most excited about seeing Tim Volter because of the pure effing chaos that I think is going to...
Well, tell us about that then.
Fine.
Don't ignore Joe's question.
I tried to give you an articulate, intelligent answer, and I thought I did.
It's not what the question was. This is a Q&A, not... Well, let's hear what Justin just wants to talk about.
Well, that's what the podcast is usually about with you, isn't it? Anyway, Tim Volter of Hull City. Look, the man just wants to attack. He just wants to play attacking football. That's all he wants. And what that means is pure chaos, pure drama. We saw it at Ipswich last season, how exciting it can be to have a team who just push and push and push. Could Tim Volter instill that philosophy and drive into that whole team? Maybe. But what we can be promised is goals. Whether Hull lose 4-3 or win 4-3, I expect that to be the case.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how Tim Volter approaches games in the Championship. I'll say that much, because that was definitely one of his shortcomings from what we're told over in Germany. I'm going to reserve judgment on him for now, but he did get a lot of backing at Hamburg and failed to get them promoted in 3 goes. So that's why I wouldn't say he's the one I'm most excited about right now. The answer I would give, and this was an easy one for me, is Johannes Hoff Thorup at Norwich. Easy for me to say. The other new appointments, I can find reasons for positivity, but also plenty of reasons to be doubtful. With Thorup, the more I read about him, the more excited I get. I mean, he'd been getting rave reviews for the job he did at Nordsjælland in Denmark anyway, by the data bods, those kind of people you see on social media. But, I mean, just look at the facts. They finished 9th the season before he was appointed and came 2nd in his first season at Nordsjælland. Plays exciting attacking football and has an unbelievable record of developing young players. They beat Fenerbahce 6-1 in the Europa Conference League last November, and 9 of the starting 11 were academy graduates. That's pretty exciting, isn't it? Especially when you remember how productive Norwich's academy has been over the past couple of decades. And I think if Norwich are wanting to change how they've approached things over the past few years, I think definitely tapping into that academy more makes a lot of sense. And also, and this is a really, really big thing for me, the new sporting director at Norwich, Ben Napper, he seemed to have Thorpe lined up pretty much instantly as soon as David Wagner was out the door. That always gives me encouragement because it shows there's a plan behind the scenes. It shows that they had their heart set on getting this guy in, and there's a succession plan here. Yeah. It wasn't like certain clubs in the Championship who have gone through about their sixth choice manager before ending up on the one that they have got now. They had their heart set on Thorpe and have got him in. I think that's really exciting, Justin.
Well, I was going to say, I know you took a dig there, but when you consider the fact that Burnley are still in the process of appointing their manager at the time of recording, and then you've got Sunderland who went through 33 different managers before they ended up on Reggie. It's it takes a piss a little bit, doesn't it? But whereas Norwich were very swift in their actions, they were very quick, they were very clinical. They got it done quick. They got Thorpe in quick. I think the only thing that would make me hesitate with picking Thorpe is where Norwich are now and where Thorpe needs them to be to thrive under him. Maybe it might take a season, maybe it might take a season and a half, maybe it might take 6 months. It just depends where they are and where they need to be. But like you said, Ben Napper had everything in place, and that's a huge, huge positive because a lot of clubs have struggled this summer in appointing a new manager.
Yeah, they certainly have. Sunderland, the obvious example. Regis Labrie, I think this one really could go disastrously bad or quite well. And I suppose part of that is because he's had 2 seasons in his managerial career so far. One went disastrously bad, the other one went quite well. So that's why there's reasons for positivity. There's also reasons to be doubtful. Mm-hmm. Scott Parker at Burnley, we discussed that on Thursday, didn't we? And Wayne Rooney to Plymouth. You may find it intriguing, Justin. I don't find it exciting because it involves Wayne Rooney.
Intrigue is a thing of, it's like driving past a car crash, isn't it? That you need to look. Everybody looks. Everybody looks.
I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree. Justin, let's move on to this next question. This is from Connor Atkinson. He has dropped the 3-letter abbreviation, which we only murmur ever so quietly around these parts, Justin. Is VAR ever going to be right for the Championship? What do you think, Peachy?
Fuck yes. 100%. I'm going in hard, 2-footed here, which VAR would give me a red card for. Yeah. VAR...
Will it? Can you guarantee that?
It depends who's on it. Look, VAR, in my opinion, has been fantastic at the Euros. I think it has anyway. Sure, there have been moments, but the amount of games that are going on, there are going to be moments. But I think VAR has been so effective in its decision-making, in the speed of its decision-making, and maybe not the communication to fans, but I think decisions have been done that quickly. It's not really been overly necessary. And as I say, for the most part, it's been great. Offsides have been quick. They've been swift. Sure, the rules are still a bit shit. They're still a bit daft in parts. Like, for example, the amount of person that can be offside, that is deemed an advantage. I think if you adopt the same approach at the Euros with VAR across Europe, into the Premier League, into the Championship, wherever, you're on to a winner, because I think this has been the ideal tournament where you've gone, I've not really heard anyone speaking negatively about VAR. I've not heard anyone speaking about VAR generally. So therefore, it must be doing something right.
I think the one, just to pull you up on that, the one was the one the other day. I can't remember what game it was now, but the toenail offside.
That's a rule, though, isn't it? That's a rule. That's not VAR.
That's true. I'm not disagreeing with you, Justin, but just pointing out that there has been some controversy with VAR in this tournament. Even though I don't think VAR actually did much wrong there. I think it was just enforcing the rules, wasn't it? But how would you look at what's happened in the Euros this summer and make that successfully implemented into the Championship? Just to go back to the original question.
Don't let the English have any part of it.
I think that's going to be quite difficult in the English Championship.
It is. But I think over in England, everything's been overcomplicated. I mean, the Premier League...
Over in England? You're in England.
Am I? I choose not to sometimes. I just pick and choose when I don't want to be here. I think, as I say, I think if you... The Premier League, for example, have enforced slightly different ways of VAR. They now, for the upcoming season, are adopting the same approaches to offsides, for example. It's a bit of a tongue twister at times. It's really confusing. But as I say, if you adopt exactly the same approach they have done at the Euros and take it into English football, I think it will be a success. like I said, if you just don't allow the English to get involved, I think it'll be fine. I think the Europeans have got it sorted. That being, that's my 2 pence worth.
So you think VAR should be in the Championship?
Yes, I do think VAR should be in the Championship.
There you go. I disagree. I firmly believe VAR should be in the Championship, but that's purely down to my feelings that certain decisions are completely down to interpretation and will never be roundly agreed upon. So you're talking like red cards, handballs, etc. The average fan on the street will look at that, and you won't ever get an answer where everyone agrees that's the right decision. But I think there should be automated offsides in the Championship, because that is just cut and dry, isn't it, Justin? You can't disagree. It's either offside or it's not. It's just a fact, isn't it? You can make some sort of debate about how thick the lines should be, and maybe that's one way of going about it to, make there be less, controversy around decisions, is what I'm trying to say. But that's what I would do. If I was in charge, I would look to introduce automated offside, because ultimately the thing is, Justin, we hear all the time from fans about how the standards of refereeing in the Championship are not great. You can't complain about those things if you're not open to something being done about it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, exactly. I think it's almost a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like, you're complaining about how poor refereeing is, but you don't want VAR. So, okay, why are you moaning then? If you don't want a solution, keep quiet. But at the same time, I think people just love a moan as well.
That is true.
That's why we get a lot of stick sometimes. But yeah, it's an important point to make.
Going back to the point, that's why I think automated offsides, you can't argue with that. That's one less bit of controversy that we'll have to deal with each and every single week.
We don't have to deal with.
Exactly. Whereas other things, they'll be up for debate. Those things will continue. I think that's unavoidable, unfortunately. Offsides, that can be eliminated from the equation. This next question is from Callum Black. He asks, who's your favourite one-season wonder in championship history? He's basically asking a player who had one amazing season and did very little else at championship level. Justin, who are you going for?
The first name that came to my head was Freddie Eastwood. I tried to.
That's a nostalgia one. Freddie Eastwood's one of those people I completely forget about, but when I do remember him, it just makes me a bit warm inside.
Yeah, it's one of those. I almost feel harsh because his career did not go to plan at all. But he scored 23 goals in League One in the 05-06 season. He tied Billy Sharp when he was at Scunthorpe. Billy Sharp, that is, with the Golden Boot. Didn't get a big money move. Every single club in the Championship was linked to him following summer. Every club. But he stayed at Southend. He only scored 11, but Southend obviously got relegated. So scoring goals in a relegation team going down is going to be difficult. A fairly decent season. And then he then moved to Wolves. Big money move back then. I think it's sort of just under £2 million to Wolves in the at the start of the 07-08 season, and failed to hit double figures for the rest of his career. Now that is one season wonder.
Not necessarily one season wonder in the Championship, though, is it?
But it's one season wonder. I always find these questions quite interesting because I try to just go off my gut with these. Like whatever name comes to my head, I'm like, okay, well, let's have a look. I try not to research too much just because a flood of names will come into my head, and maybe it might be judged a bit too harsh.
Wasn't there another striker kind of around the same time?
Jamie
as
Curriton.
No, someone else.
But Jamie Curriton's another one I've got down here. Because he scored.
Of Gary Hooper. I might be thinking of
Gary Hooper was great. But Jamie Curriton scored 23 goals in the Championship in the 06-07 season, won the Golden Boot. And before then, had never scored more than 9 in the first division. Then showed up with Colchester in the 06-07 season, scored 23, and then didn't really do much else with his career apart from play for every single club down south.
Scored a lot of goals, didn't he? He was at certain levels, like lower league levels, but Championship level, you are right. He could definitely be counted as a one-season wonder. And my player is one of those who, is like Jamie Curitin, has played for a lot of clubs. I get a bit of a thrill from looking at his Wikipedia and simply marvelling at how long the bit is with all the clubs he's played for. Justin, I'm not going to say the player's name yet. Let's see if you can guess who it is. These are his goal tallies for Championship seasons in chronological order. 7, 1, 6, 3.
Stop. Leon Clark.
Yes, it is. His goal tallies for Championship seasons in chronological order. 7, 1, 6, 3, 8, 6, 1, 3, 19 and 6. I know 19 won't be challenging the record keepers for most goals in a Championship season, but he only finished 2 behind the top scorer in Mate Vidra that season, the 17-18 season. But it's just funny to me how Leon Clark had 10 different seasons at Championship level and randomly had one season where he scored more than double his next best tally. It's mental, but he was phenomenal for Sheffield United that season, wasn't he?
He was. He's always been a fairly youthful player, and he kicks the ball really hard. Because I remember him scoring some really emphatic goals from like 7 or 8 yards out, but just taking the roof off the net. But he was great for the Blades that season. He really was. Coming up from League One as well, which is a big step up, and he goes and scores that many goals in a team who are still adjusting, if you like, to Championship level. It's great. And as you say,
as well, Justin, the thing is, you mentioned how he played quite a lot at League One and League Two level. He had 12 seasons throughout his career at League One and League Two level. Never scored 19 or more goals. He had just one season in the Championship where it all clicked for some crazy reason. It's just mental.
It is bonkers. But fair props to old Leon. But as you say, like he's never really pulled up stones. That's the one, isn't it?
Pulled up trees, you idiot.
Pulled up trees. But he never pulled up stones either. He didn't pull up trees or stones, and he was just always the average journeyman. And then he hit 19, and that's the stuff of journeyman dreams, isn't it? Steve Claridge never hit 19.
Do you want to know something that makes it even more crazy, Justin? That season where we hit 19 for Sheffield United in the Championship, he was 32 at the time.
Yeah, just all clicked. He just all
just
clicked.
To make it even more bizarre, he went his whole career without getting anywhere near that. And then, 32 years old, I'm just going to score 19 goals this season. 24 clubs he's added to his career, Justin. Only just retired in May. My GOAT. Final question we've got here. This is from Phil Day. What's the worst away day you've ever had? I've had a few, Justin, but you can kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, getting pumped 6 goals going to Coventry twice in 2 years wasn't fun. I did go to the Highfield Road send-off, and that was fun. Derby lost 6-2 that day, and it was the end of the season, so it was really nice weather. It was one of those typical like end of season games. So that was all right, but then the next season we got pumped 6-1, and I was 11 years old, and I was going to the Rico for the first time, and it was pretty dead ground. It's very echoey. Fans weren't obviously showing up in their numbers. I was 11 years old, threw up on the way there, lose 6-1. Very sobering. Yeah, very sobering game. And you go from Highfield Road to that in the space of 8 months. Reflecting now was pretty sad.
Yeah, I've got a few answers. I mean, this one had nothing to do with the actual football on show. It was Bolton away, and we were stuck in traffic on the M6 for 2 to 3 hours, and only ended up seeing the last 15 minutes of the game, which was I think it may have been 2-2, but we didn't see any goals in that 15 minutes. Man. So it was very, very annoying. In terms of, I suppose with this question, it depends on how you want to answer it. That was a bad away day, but if you're looking for bad away days in terms of the ground being an absolute shithole, then I've got 2 answers in the form of Rotherham's old ground, Millmore, which was an awful place. Still exists, by the way. It's been abandoned for like nearly 20 years, but they've never decided to knock it down. I mean, it's probably in as good a state now as it was back then. I don't think the toilets had a roof, which kind of sums it up. But that was an awful ground. Another one I'd put out there is Doncaster's old ground.
I was going to say that one as well. Yeah, that was an awful away trip. Awful ground.
Awful. It
ground.
genuinely was the equivalent of a non-league ground. And when I say non-league, I mean like 7th, 8th tier.
Yeah.
If you had that ground in that kind of level, you wouldn't be surprised. In fact, you'd actually say this is still quite disappointing.
Yeah.
So the fact that Doncaster had that was unbelievable.
But I went to Doncaster's new ground as well, and that was equally the Keepmoat. It's Keepmoat, isn't it? It was it was then anyway, and that was equally as horrendous. Mainly because it was just one of those bowl type grounds with one tier.
Yeah.
Just copy and paste of the New York Stadium, Rotherham's ground. It was awful. It was awful. So I would pick Bellevue over that any day.
It certainly had character, but I think that character was smelly and very disgusting.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. I've also been to the Keepmoat. I also agree it's the definition of a bowl, isn't it? You know, those those modern crappy tiny grounds which have nothing about them at all.
That's why your Bramall Lanes, your Hillsboroughs, your City grounds, they are perfect. They are perfect grounds. They're brilliant. Brilliant football grounds.
I'm not going to disagree with that, Justin. What's the worst ground you've been to?
Well, you bought Bellevue. That was awful. I went to Colchester's Layer Road. That was crap. Griffin Park as well. I liked
Griffin Park.
Yeah.
Griffin Park had character.
It was uncomfortable. If you're over 6 foot, it's not a nice experience at all.
It's also an absolute nightmare if you want to go to the toilet at half time because you could not go through the what they called. What's it called when
the concourse? The
concourse.
Yeah, the amount of Brentford fans I imagine getting bloody UTIs just from having to not being able to pee all the time. It's horrendous. Sad times. Sad times.
It was sad times. It was sad though when they knocked it down because I did genuinely like
another bowl
that had character. But there you go. Those have been our worst away days, ladies and gentlemen, and this has been a Q&A featuring your pals at the second tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are, and we'll be back again on Thursday to give you another news roundup of everything happening in the Championship. Hopefully we continue to see these transfer deals ticking along, so we've got loads for us to talk about there and then, and if that is the case, we look forward to seeing you then for that. So this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.